Things are getting pretty serious. The would-be Shah has been splattered with paint, and a statue of Jesus was destroyed in Lebanon. Let's get into it. Roll the footage. Been hit with red paint. And they're all chanting King Reza Pahlavi. There's always something very symbolic about being splattered with red paint, obviously the red signifying blood. And it kind of sends a message, doesn't it? If someone can get close enough to you to splatter you with paint, it's almost like a hint that, well, they could have done something a lot worse. Thankfully, they didn't. Let's hear from King Reza Pahlavi, would-be king, the man who would be king.
Even today, as I speak to you, you're shifting back to a mode of appeasement.
Again,
I think you should be apologizing to the people of Iran for appeasing the regime as opposed to having their back. I'm here to tell you, we are asking you this time to support the Iranian people. And we're not going to apologize for that demand because I think the Iranian people deserve your support. And I told you, we will fight the fight regardless of whether you help us or not. But let that be on your conscience.
Again, on French TV, you...
I think you asked too many questions.
No, I can ask one more question. That's my right. Again, on French TV, you clearly stated or you denied the fact that you supported military intervention. And
yes,
now,
I did.
And
of course I did.
You denied the fact.
I just told you the
Can
reason.
you please let me ask my question? You denied the fact that you support military intervention. Now, again, you legitimize the military intervention. I have another question.
Well, you should never lie on French TV. They're suggesting that he was against the idea of military intervention and now he's coming round to it. Well, everyone's allowed to change their opinion, aren't they? Especially a king, the man who would be king. Let's hear a little bit more.
Now I see.
I have a personal question since we can see outside that you're here with the help of the lobby group Europe-Israel Press Association. The Israeli government supports you taking over in Iran, and the same government, that's the same government that started a war of aggression against your country with the US. So many people around the world think that you are an Israeli asset. Are you?
Of course not. But I'm a friend to Israel and the Jews, and I tell you why. Because again, as a descendant of Cyrus the Great, we take pride of the fact that the very cornerstone of human rights happened at the time that Cyrus the Great, through his cylinder, which is displayed worldwide, that is referred to in the whole of nations as the United Nations, was what coined the very principles of liberty when he freed the Jewish slaves in Babylon and helped them rebuild their temples in Jerusalem. Iranians and Jews have a biblical relationship. In fact, the only two countries that can claim that. In modern history, Iran wasn't the only country in the Middle East that harbored Jews that were escaping Hitler and his regime and were given refuge in Iran. That's part of our history. That's part of our tradition of harboring persecuted people. Jews in Iran were free to practice their faith before the revolution. I'm fighting for their rights to be restored and that of any other religion in Iran, because one of the cornerstones of human rights should be protecting people in their freedom of religion. That's what I stand for. And I don't need to be an agent of anyone to do that, but I'm an agent of my people.
There's no doubt that the ancient Zoroastrian religion was way ahead of its time when it came to human rights and equality for all. He's harking back to history a long time ago when Cyrus the Great facilitated Jewish people being freed from Babylon, modern day Iraq. Does that make him an Israeli asset? He says no.
In the last 2 weeks, 19 political prisoners have been executed. So let me ask you, do any of you know their names? Have any of you written articles about them? Have you looked into this at all? I read in your newspapers about the tragedies of war. But what of the regime's crimes against my compatriots?
Execution of political prisoners, mentioned before on this channel. Personally, I'm against the capital punishment. I think in modern times we can find a better way, and I think any regime that executes political prisoners does a great disservice to itself, very bad publicity, and it's an argument, isn't it, for invading the country. I also disagree with that. I do not support the invasion of Iran, nor does Carl Tuckerson. Let's hear from him.
Here's another tape from southern Lebanon, also from 2024. These are Israeli soldiers.
And we're now into the Lebanon issue. Remember, statue of Jesus has been desecrated in Lebanon. I think the Israelis have since apologized about it.
Inside a church mocking Christian rites, holding a kind of black mass. This is real. Watch this. Oh, the great Mary.
הגענו לערב הזה, מוכן, תשים, אני מתכבד! אני מתכבד! שקט! שקט! סולי, אני אוהב אותך! אני אוהב אותך, סולי! אני אוהב אותך!
Israeli soldiers mocking the Christian religion. I don't think you would be likely to find Christians doing that sort of thing in synagogue, or even well, this is the difficulty when you've got the chronology of religion. Christian people accept the Jewish religion because it came before, and they argue that they are a continuation of that faith, of that revelation. Similarly, Muslims whose religion or whose Quran came later acknowledge the Jewish faith and the Christian faith as being divinely revealed, as being, in fact, originally Islam, the submission to the one God. So sometimes religions can be very accepting of the previous faith, but the moment something comes after their religion or someone changes it, takes it in a different direction, they don't like it at all. Someone who's gone back to his Jewish roots is the president of Argentina, and you'll see him here alongside Bibi. Now, he's brought up in the Catholic faith, but I think he kind of discovered later in life that he had some Jewish heritage, Jewish origin, perhaps through a grandfather, and kind of fell in love with Jewish culture, Jewish heritage, and I think wanted to convert to Judaism whilst still believing in Christianity, in Catholicism. So again, the blurred lines between identity, faith, is it a heritage, is it an ethnicity, is it a religion? Well, let's hear from the best of friends, the super best friends.
Greetings from America to these two wonderful friends and allies. And we're in a world where we need all the friends and all the allies that we can possibly have. I'm grateful for the leadership that both of these leaders have brought, not only to bring back the values that are the underpinning of Western civilization and the Judeo-Christian foundation upon which our nations were built, but to stand with moral clarity in a way that most leaders are afraid to do. I stand here today with two world leaders who have the courage, the conviction, and the will. And it's an honor to be able to be with both of you.
America convinced that Israel is their greatest ally, and also Argentina. There's talk of Israeli people moving to Argentina. There were some fires that happened in Argentina that some people were very suspicious of. I don't know anything about who was behind them. But remember, Patagonia in Argentina was one of the ideas, one of the potential projects for a Zionist state, for a Jewish state, before the Zionist movement decided upon the Holy Land. There were other projects, other ideas, Madagascar, Argentina. It was a nationalist movement to begin with, a secular nationalist movement that just wanted a homeland. It wasn't attached to an idea of God promising the land, because the early Zionists didn't believe in God. They were secular. Theodor Herzl was a secular Jewish person. I've got a hello from someone in the chat whose name I can't read. Would that be Korean? I'm not sure, but a very warm welcome to you. Love to get your opinion as ever. If anyone wants to send a message, give me a call. The WhatsApp number is up there. In the UK, it's 07886993784. You could send a voice note and I will play it live on the live stream. Let's have a look. This is actually, I think, the footage of the Christian crucifix that was damaged in Lebanon.
يسوع أنت إلهي حبك شافي الوحيد أنت حبيب نفسي أبدا يسوع أنت من أريد.
Very sad music accompanying that footage. And interestingly, the Arab Christians refer to Jesus as Yasu, not Isa. Isa, Arabic for Jesus in the Quran, but Lebanese Christians would refer to him as Yasu, in Hebrew, Yeshua, in English, Jesus. Same person, we know who we're talking about, and that is the footage of the statue that got damaged. Andrew's asking, do you have a life other than talking about religion and politics? Not really, Andrew, do you? You're watching the live stream. Andrew, they named him twice, and he's saying, it's war. Okay, thanks, Andrew. I wonder what you do in your spare time. Let's hear from, I think it's Sky News.
A Lebanese military official has said that the body of a Lebanese journalist who was injured in an Israeli strike has been found under the rubble in southern Lebanon. Well, let's go straight to our correspondent who joins us from Beirut, Diana Magne. Diana, this story developed earlier today, the sad news that this journalist had been killed. Can you just give us a little bit more information?
Yes, Yada, this is Amal Khalil. She works for the Al Akbar news agency, which is Hezbollah aligned. And she and another journalist colleague, freelance, who was working with her, were inside Lebanese occupied territory, this so-called yellow line, which Israel has defined and forbidden entry into. And they were in a sort of two-vehicle convoy, it seems, and the reports that we've been getting from various sources made it quite difficult to work out what was happening. But according to the IDF, they had left what the IDF deems to have been a military building or structure belonging to Hezbollah, and had gone in two cars deeper towards Bint Jubail, which is a town in the south which has seen very, very fierce fighting, again within Lebanese occupied territory. The IDF called an airstrike on the first vehicle. 2 people in that were killed. Amal and her colleague Zainab then tried to take cover in a nearby house, and there was another airstrike on that house. Now, from what we are understanding from Lebanese officials, the rescue team that tried to go there were denied access. There was live fire coming at them. That seems to have been resolved over the course of various hours. The IDF said that they didn't block access. That's not what we were hearing. And there have been rescue teams trying to work to try and get Amal from underneath the rubble. And as you say, that is unfortunately not, her body has now been found. We understand that her colleague Zainab suffered serious head injuries too. And this brings the number of journalists killed here in Lebanon since October the 7th, 2023, up to 15. Israel does not have a good track record, as you know, in targeting journalists.
So many journalists lost their life in Gaza. There's another one gone in Lebanon. Mentioned that the channel is linked to Hezbollah, as she pronounced it. Hezbollah. Hezbollah have an armed wing and a political wing. I believe the armed wing is prescribed, and perhaps that would be the argument for, well, was it a targeted attack or was it an inadvertent, accidental loss of life? Let's have another clip. Carl Tuckerson.
I know what the Catholic Church teaches. We are the new Israel. That's what the church teaches.
So this relates to what's going on in Lebanon and the desecration of the Christian church. Many of the Christians in Lebanon are Catholic, but a type of Catholic, the Maronite Church, which has the same doctrine as the Catholic Church, but I don't think they follow the Pope. They're not in union with the Vatican. But let's have a listen.
You're the fulfillment of the old Israel. I mean, look at Jesus fulfilled it all on the cross. He got, when he said it is finished, the old was completely done. There is the new covenant now.
Welcome, Sam. We're gonna pause the video to hear from the Turk because he wants to jump in. How are you doing, Turk?
Alhamdulillah. How are you, brother?
Alhamdulillah, bro. Just looking at the footage of. Did you see the statue of Jesus that was desecrated?
I did. Blasphemy.
Blasphemy. How do the Christians that support Israel justify this one? Would they turn the other way?
They cannot. They're wrong for doing this, for supporting them. They are wrong.
True, but they did say that they'd apologized and that they'd chastised the soldier that did it. Is that enough?
No, off of his head.
Off his head. I suppose so. But if you take a literal reading of the Bible, are these statues not graven images? Is it not forbidden to make a statue?
I don't know, but you can't be destroying it. It's not good.
Yeah, look, I'm on the same page as you with that one. Did you see the Shah get covered in paint?
No, I did not see that.
So the would-be Shah of Iran was at some rally and someone showed up and covered him in red paint. That was
He's probably a leftist.
Why? Because they love to throw paint at people.
Yeah, they love doing that, and they love causing just like terror and stuff like that. I doubt it's a conservative. They don't really do that.
Well, if you disagree with someone, what is the acceptable level of protest? Is it throwing paint? Is it more than that?
Peaceful protests only, sir. You can't be destroying things. Unacceptable.
But at least it's not as violent as actually hurting someone.
Yes, I agree. But it should always be peaceful. You're protesting.
So
destroy anything.
So what could you do? Chain yourself to the railings? Would you accept that?
No, they could just march on the street and yell all they want. That's about it.
Okay, freedom. The Turk is a freedom of speech absolutist, but not a freedom of paint.
Yes, you can't be vandalizing people or things. It's not good.
All right, brother, we'll take that.
I've never been a fan of vandalism.
Well,
not even graffiti.
Don't do vandalism, kids. All right, we'll take that advice. Thank you, Turk.
All right.
Have a good night, bro.
You too.
Take care, brother. Shabakher.
Bye-bye.
Guli guli. There goes the Turk weighing in as usual, and we'd love to hear from him. And if anyone else wants to give a call, the number's up there. We were with Tucker Carlson. The argument being made here by this Christian lady who's wearing the cross is that the Christians are the new Israel. Jewish people were the chosen people, but after Jesus, it's a Christian opinion that the new Israel is actually the Christians. Let's have a listen.
Those who are in Christ, that is the new people of God. It is very clear. This isn't even debatable. I don't even know why we're having this debate, which is why Bishop Barron and Cardinal Dolan should be like, yeah, it's what we believe. We are the new Israel. The land means nothing anymore. Yes, it's the Holy Land, but that's not some biblical... What are they going to... What's scary, Tucker, is these people like Paula White and Ted Cruz and Dan Patrick, they believe that there will be... The Dome of the Rock will be torn down, and they will rebuild that third temple. They're saying it now. Look at Pete Hegseth. There will be a rebuilding of this temple.
Oh, I know.
It is heretical, and it is anti-Christian.
I know that.
Because they're going to bring in the animal sacrifices again. And the most anti-Semitic thing that they believe is that 2/3 of the Jews are going to be slaughtered. That's what these people believe. They're just manipulating them and using them. They don't really care.
Oh, everything you've said is true. I mean, Jesus describes himself as the temple.
Yes.
So
he is the temple.
Well, he says that.
He is the lamb that was slain, the final sacrifice.
So, yeah.
In the chat, Peradabo is saying Christ is king. Peradabo, do you believe that Christians are the new Israel, are the new chosen ones? I would love to know if you believe that. And Odin, who's a regular contributor, is saying, is he racist or not? I don't know. And is my engine builder racist because he told me not to get a block cast in Mexico? I don't know, Odin. You tell me. But always great to have you on the show. Let's have a look at some more of the Iranian protesters that align themselves with Israel because they believe that Israel could play a role in achieving regime change in Iran. They want to see the back of the Islamic Republic. We've mentioned that they are executing political prisoners, and in my view, these people are short-sighted. I wouldn't want Israel or the West involved in regime change in my country, but they're of the view that it can bring about change.
Why do you have a U.S. flag?
Because they are supporting us to get rid of the mullahs. IRGC, they are killing Iranian people. U.S. and Israel, they are helping us to get rid of them.
So do you want...
Without U.S. and Israel, we couldn't do anything. They would kill us all.
Do you
90 million people.
Do you support Trump's call to wipe out Iranian civilization?
100%.
You support Trump's call to wipe out Iranian civilization?
Yeah, exactly.
100%. Sorry. You said that one.
Trump did say words to that effect, that he wanted to wipe out the civilization. We hope that that will not happen. Let's have another clip. This is the president of Argentina. Look at him go. Really embracing his Jewish heritage there. In the chat, War is Peace is saying Mile is short for Mielkowski. So that would suggest an Ashkenazim origin. Is he an Eastern European Jew? You would think that Latin South America, Argentina, might have Jewish people of the Sephardic traditions, the Sephardim, the Jews that were in Spain. I think Sephard means Spain or Spanish in Hebrew, or Ladino. They speak their own Ladino dialect. It's sort of like a Spanish Jewish language. And look, Mielkowski, he's embracing his heritage. As I say, it's a very distant Jewish heritage. And it almost reminds me of like the one drop rule. Remember when in America during Jim Crow, you were considered black if you had one drop of black blood? And I mean, that's not even how genealogy works. Your blood isn't partly black or white or whatever. But if you were proven to have a black grandfather or great-grandfather, even if you were white passing, you would be considered a black person. You wouldn't be allowed to drink from the white drinking fountain or sit at the front of the bus or whatever the other things were that were reserved for only those pure white people with their white privilege. So if Mile, or Mielkowski, as you're calling him in the chat, has a Jewish grandfather or Jewish grandfather, why suddenly does that become his whole identity, even though the majority of his DNA, not that I like to talk about it in terms of DNA, is not from a Jewish heritage? Terry is saying the world is effed because of Islam. Your channel is doing great work to show this. Keep up the great work. Appreciate it, Terry. Thank you very much. And I mean, why is it Islam is doing? What has Islam done? Captain Live is saying play the victim. Not sure who's playing which victim, but that's fine. You're free to express yourself. Let's have another clip. Bibi, and this is going to be auto-dub translated, I think.
Well, Israeli media reports a court in West Jerusalem has cancelled Benjamin Netanyahu's testimony in his corruption trial for this week. This comes after his lawyers cited security and diplomatic reasons. Judges reportedly say another witness will appear instead, despite opposition from prosecutors. It is the latest in a series of delays, with his appearances postponed multiple times. Let's speak again to Noor O'Day, who's near Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. So, Noor, there will, of course, be those who say this is just an excuse for the Israeli PM to avoid the stand.
Well, that would be most Israelis, Nick, because Benjamin Netanyahu has been doing this for years, not months. He certainly used the war first against Gaza as an excuse, and then after that, the war with Lebanon, and then also the attack on Iran in June of last year, and now this war. There is always a way for Benjamin Netanyahu to give himself a way out of a court hearing, and that's exactly what he's been doing. The prosecutor is extremely frustrated, but there's very little that the prosecution can do, given the fact that the court has yet to reject a request by the Israeli Prime Minister to get a get out of court card, if you will, from them because of security reasons or diplomatic reasons or strategic reasons or whatever reasons that his lawyers can come up with.
Israel actually has a history of prosecuting its own leaders. Ehud Olmert, didn't he end up in prison at some point for corruption? He was certainly charged and punished. And it's just been revealed that Benjamin Netanyahu is suffering from cancer. I wonder if this will become some way for him to evade justice. Do you remember when Ariel Sharon, at the end of his life, the long, prolonged end of his life, when he slipped into a coma, I think he was in a vegetative state, and he could not stand up in court and receive the justice after what he was accused of. So on the one hand, Israelis try to hold up the fact that an Israeli prime minister was sentenced by an Arab judge in our court. But there have been other examples. Benjamin Netanyahu on the run, evading justice, starting a war, not even a war, a genocide, an invasion, to prolong this process so we don't end up imprisoning him. Will his cancer diagnosis also be used to prolong that process? And War is Peace is saying some of the most extreme religious people are converts. Yes, they talk about the zeal of the convert, the person who's not born into it, gets into it, embraces a religion rather than being brought up in it. Do they feel that they need to compensate for something, that they will never be religious enough? Then again, a lot of people that are brought up into an ideology are also brainwashed. So I think anyone could become an extremist. Captain Live is saying, if you had any connections, Jews, you're probably going to had a strong support. That's why. Not a bit of a cryptic one, that. Not exactly sure what you mean. But yeah, I do think there is something about the person who has chosen an identity. If you grow up and your identity is not clear, when you're 11, 12 or a teenager, you will have to choose your identity. And sometimes people choose an extreme identity to compensate for a lack of a clear identity. Tobin Robinson, Stephen Yaxley Lennon, grew up in an Irish family. His mum and dad are from somewhere else, but somehow he became very, very English to compensate for it. I don't know. We'll have to ask him. We're hoping to get him on the show one day. But if your identity is not clear, you may have to choose something to make you feel that strong identity. And I think that's what happened with him. It might be what happened with this Milei character. He looks a little bit crazy. Maybe not surprising that he adopted such a extreme version of an identity. I mean, he's clearly really getting into it, isn't he? And you said about his name being Milei, could have been Milei Okowski. we talked before about Benjamin Netanyahu's original name being an Eastern European name, and these people that came to the Middle East changed their names to sound more Middle Eastern and less European. From their perspective, they were returning back to their homeland, where they believe at least some of their ancestors might have fled from 2,000 years ago. And someone made a comment in the chat, and it was a comment on the previous live stream that we did, and they were having a go at the Palestinians and saying, well, the only reason that there's no peace in the Middle East is because the Palestinians refused to agree to it. They never agreed to the various two-state solutions that have been on the table. And the Palestinian response to that would be that they are fighting for their homeland. And if Jewish people didn't relinquish this idea for 2,000 years, why would Palestinians relinquish it after 78 years, or however long it's going to be this Nakba? I think it will be 78 years since the Nakba, and there are still Palestinians alive who are longing to go back to the home that they were driven from, and there's children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren who also still longing to go back. And you can dismiss it and say, that's it, forget it. You're Lebanese now, you're Jordanian now, you're wherever you've ended up. But if Jewish people in Poland, in Argentina, in every corner of the world had a concept of going back to somewhere they might have a great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather and have the right to do so. Miałkowski, if he can prove his Jewish ancestry or the fact he's converted now is maybe good enough, he can go and live in any part of historic Palestine, but someone whose grandfather came from there, and I've seen the deeds to a house in Palestine, in a refugee camp in Lebanon, in Burj al-Barajneh, a Palestinian refugee camp where people have lived for 4 generations longing to go back. So if you accept one and don't accept another, well, that's supremacy, isn't it? Why? What else can you call it? So remember that when people say that the Palestinians should just be quiet and accept it and go off and live in obscurity and be anything, go and live in Europe and don't try to come back to the Holy Land. In the chat, Warriors Peace said Bibi Nosferatu. I don't know what that name means. If you could expand upon it, I would love to know. Captain Lab is saying no one cares, but Mariam is saying that's definitely supremacy. Yeah, I think so. I've mentioned before about the other movements that longed to go back to an ancient homeland. I mean, when this gets brought up, the right of return, I try to ask, has there ever been any other example where people went back to the land of their ancestors hundreds or thousands of years ago with a right to a citizenship or a passport? And the only other example I can think of is the Back to Africa movement of the likes of the Rastafarians, Marcus Garvey, these so-called African Americans that were embracing their African roots, African heritage, and they wanted to go back to Africa. But they didn't go back to be superior to the Africans that were living there. They went back to join them and be part of them and say, They are our brothers. Mariam is asking, why do they deny DNA testing? We have to wonder. This gets stated that, and I don't know, I haven't checked if it's true. I've only heard it on the internet, so well, I assume it's true then. The idea that DNA testing is illegal in Israel. How could it be? If I mean, you send off to a website and they give you something that you swirl around your mouth. Even if it was illegal, it would be very difficult to police that, wouldn't it? But all these companies, I think 23andMe was one of them, they had a big controversy because they released people's data. Again, your data, protect your data at all costs. So how could you prevent someone from doing a DNA test if it's something that you apply for in the post? But let's say, okay, the Israeli state are not big on DNA testing because it will show that they come from somewhere else. Most of these DNA companies, I've never done it myself. I'm too much of a paranoid tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorist to rub something around in my mouth and send it off for the results. I didn't even want to do that during the pandemic, never mind voluntarily for a website. But let's say I did. A lot of the results come up with, you're 20% this, 30%, and one of the categories on there is, if I'm correct, Jewish. There is a category for Jewish DNA. Now I don't know if it specifies, and I think it does specify, Ashkenazi European DNA. If that's a particular category, and you're an Ashkenazi Jewish person in Israel, well, then that's what your DNA's going to show. But that wouldn't mean that European Jewish people don't have a great-great-grandfather who lived in Israel, Palestine at some point. If you believe the story, they had ancestors from elsewhere before that. They were roaming. They were in Egypt at one point. The prophet Ibrahim, peace be upon him, lived in Iraq. So where is your DNA going to be if you have been traveling around? If you're a traveler, if you're a Roma traveler or an Irish traveler and you do your DNA test, I'm sure it will show all the places that you've been, possibly going all the way back to Rajasthan in India. But that doesn't mean that you'd have the right to go and live in Rajasthan tomorrow and boot out the people living there now. But I did wonder about the DNA testing kits and this push for everyone to get their DNA tested. You could argue that that might be a way of getting people to disconnect themselves from their current nationality and feel less nationalistic. If you're a really proud Englishman, Irishman, whatever you are, Italian, are you going to feel less so if you get a DNA result that says, well, actually, you're 10% Jewish, 5% African, North African, whatever it is? Would it actually have an effect on you? I remember watching a program where they got a bunch of English people to do the DNA test. One of them was Margaret Thatcher's daughter, and the results came back, and they were all English people that were kind of like, hey, I'm English through and through, I'm 100% English breakfast. And they got the results, and they all had this surprising African or Asian, other continent, non-white ancestry. And the DNA test was saying, well, quite recent ancestry. Was that a bid to make them feel less nationalistic? Is your nationality about your blood, or is nationality where you grew up? I think it's got to be a bit of both. If you grow up as the child of parents from another country, you will always feel an affinity with that country, but you will not have the same lived experience that they had, and your national identity will be different. Hassan, who has some kind of blue flag that I can't make out, he's saying to Terry, the world is F because of the West's imperialistic ambitions. There you go. You tell him, Hassan. But look, why is it the West's imperialist ambitions? Aren't all empires toxic, negative? Haven't all cultures done negative things in the name of empire in the past? And we accept that. We move. There's no point looking back and saying, well, my lot were perfect and your lot were not. With all of our cultures have got some blood on their hands. And Nick Morris is going with the out of Africa theory that everyone's DNA goes back to Africa eventually. Does it? I've heard people say that maybe we actually go back to Australia. But whether it's Australia or Africa, does it really matter? We all go back to somewhere. And that's interesting that if you're right, and we all go back to Africa, and I believe there is this mitochondrial Eve, a woman in East Africa, whom we are all at some point descended from. We're all related. Doesn't that tie in with the Genesis story? Not literally, but symbolically, there was some kind of truth to that story. And it depends on your personal beliefs, doesn't it? How literally you take the Bible. Some people get very upset the minute their doctrine, their black and white book that they've read is questioned at all, even when questioning it shouldn't be a problem at all. I was watching an interesting clip earlier on from a guy, I think it's called Kez Talks, Muslim guy talking about lots of very interesting topics, and his opinion on the age of Aisha, the radiallahu anha, the wife of the Prophet. There is hadith that mentions her age when marrying the Prophet being 9, and some people get very bogged down on accepting that hadith and sticking to it and saying this is factual, it's in the book, we have to believe it, Sahih hadith, 100%, where actually there is a broad spectrum of opinions on what the age may or may not have been, may have actually been a lot older, and it is not an article of faith to believe this one particular hadith, but because people attack you for it, some people get very, very defensive. Don't feel the need. It's very good advice to just relax a little bit. Don't immediately, when you feel that you are attacked, breathe, take your time. Don't immediately jump to defend yourself. You don't have to defend every accusation. Captain N Live is saying the question is, were the empire formed from various races, or were the nations reduced to a single race? Okay, that's interesting. We're talking about empire and what empires are built on. Is it, what do they call it, land, soil and blood? Or is it an idea? The Soviet Union, you could say, was an empire built around an ideology that wanted to do away with blood identity and ethnicity and unite the workers. Although I did see an interesting picture shared the other day. I don't know, you might have seen it shared online. It was a picture of about 9 different sketches of people, and it said this is how the Soviet police would describe suspects that had committed crimes, and each one was a different race, and it was, this is what an Uzbek looks like, this is what a Georgian looks like, this is what an Armenian looks like, and they were like caricatures of the racial different phenotypes. Is that the word? That's what we call the certain look that people have if they're from a particular race. And look, race is it's a social construct, isn't it? You can't. I don't think you can really tell by DNA what ethnicity someone is. Although apparently they can tell the gender from bones and the remains of skeletons. And Nick is saying there are religious clerics in Iraq that have taken control from civil surrounding marriage, is using that example, to lower the age limit to 9 for girls and 15 for boys. Right, there you go. Literalism in the practice of religion, because it says a number in a book, we're going to use that number. From what I understand, the Quran talks about, is it balugh, when you reach maturity, and that could be different for different people, and that's not just physical maturity, that's mental capacity. Risht, is that the word for when you're mature as well? Balugh, become an adult. Risht might be when you're mature enough. Someone in the chat will have to clarify on that one. And everyone's DNA. Oh, we did that. Yeah, we all go back to Africa. Did you see Russell Brand talking of 9 for girls and 15 for boys? Russell Brand, who's under a lot of accusations at the moment, was acknowledging that he had been with a 16-year-old when he was 30, and we find it repulsive to hear that, but of course, in the UK, no law was broken, and you've got the letter of the law and the spirit of the law, and religion tries to bring in rules that can be applied generally, but it also comes with the spirit of the law. The idea for marriage is that it is a contract between 2 adults. At what point you were considered an adult in history has been fluid, hasn't it? It's been, you know, like the way some people are gender fluid, that concept has been fluid. Why couldn't it? In war zones where life expectancy is very short, I am told that the onset of puberty is a lot earlier, and in other countries it could be a lot later. But as I say, I think any decent human being understands that you need to be mentally and physically mature enough to engage in that kind of contract, a marriage. And as our dear Sheikh Imran Hussein would say, if you think a 9-year-old is old enough to do so, you should take a one-way ticket to the moon. And tickets for the moon are available if you believe that really happened. I did a bit of a conspiracy type live stream the other night and played a clip of Michael Tsarion, but it didn't go very well. So as much as I love talking about all the conspiracy stuff, I think we're better off talking about things we can actually get a handle on, things we can actually decide whether it's true or not. If I debate what's going on in Lebanon and Iran, we've got a better chance of getting to the truth on that one. To answer Andrew, I don't know if he's still watching, that said, "Oh, do you have a life talking about anything other than politics and religion?" Well, look, I'm trying to get the chat going, and we're trying to grow a channel here and really have a platform that we can use to raise our voices about important things. I do often recall a famous quote that say, "Some people talk about other people talk about events, other people talk about ideas." Let's talk about ideas. Mariam is saying some as young as 10 in the US. Is that different states in America? I know the US being the United States, every state could have a different law, and it sounds very alien to us if you've grown up in the UK to hear that you could get married age 10. Look, no one is ready to get married at age 10. Let's say that loud and clear. Never mind 9. And don't forget, the Islamic year is 10 days shorter than the Western calendar. So if you're saying 9 years old in the Islamic calendar, that could be as much as 8 3/4. Have I done the maths right? Sean Ryan is hitting me with a very important question at such a late time in the evening. What is most important to you? What is most important to me? There's a difference between, I guess, what is actually most important to me and what do I prioritize in my life. Am I prioritizing the right things? Am I devoting enough time to the most important things in my life? The most important people in my life are my family, aren't they? I'm sure we all agree with that. The fact that I come on here to talk about politics a lot, I think what goes on in the world, it's important. It's not as important as what goes on in your life, in your house, with the people that you love. And we should keep that in mind. And I thank you, Sean Ryan, for asking me such a pertinent question. The fact that I can see your tiny profile picture there is you. I mean, this is a tiny picture that I'm trying to look at. Looks like you and another person in the picture. Looks like a lovely lady sitting next to you. I hope that she's the most important person to you, and I hope that you are living happily together. Thank you, Sean Ryan. Good Irish name there. You might be Irish ethnicity. Captain Live is saying, I think Islam exactly 100% past Stein gang with that marriage age. I can't quite work out what he's talking about. E. Stein and the list. Are there many Muslim people on the E. Stein list? I don't know. I'm sure that there'll be some. We'll have a look. And Sean is confirming I was right. She is with our 2 kids. That's lovely. That's lovely, Sean. All the very best to you and your lovely family. And we're going to leave it on that lovely positive note from Sean Ryan. It's been Lessons for Life on a Friday night. We'll do it all again soon. Appreciate you all watching. We were here and we are gone. Laters. And thank you for watching on Sarah Dasha.